Hi friends, today in this tutorial we will be talking about the event loop inside JavaScript. And basically inside event loop we have different kinds of concepts such as task queue, web APIs, call stack, MicroTask Queue. All these topics we will be explaining in detail in this slideshow. So keep watching this tutorial and please hit that like button. Now guys, before understanding the event loop, we need to understand how JavaScript works. So basically JavaScript is a single threaded language, which simply means that only one instruction, only one line of code can be executed at one time. You can see in the image also we have two console log statements, and in the first line we are printing out this is line 1 and this is line 2. So basically these two statements will be executed sequentially, it will execute. So at one time you can only execute one instruction in JavaScript. Now guys, we will be understanding what is global execution context. So you can see that from the figure itself, we have written this code here. We have declared two variables a and b, and we have also declared an user array as well. So basically it's a place inside our program where we declare variables, arrays, or any sort of objects that you want to declare. And JavaScript. So now guys, we will be discussing about call stack. So basically it's just a place where we call different kinds of functions that we are declared inside our applications. So you can see inside the screenshot we have four functions out there, and this main function represents the global execution context that we discussed in the earlier slide. So the rest of these three functions are declared in a FIFO approach. FIFO simply means that first in, first out. So it is just executed in a sequential manner, but this call stack just makes sure that it executes all these functions. So on the left hand side, you will see every time a particular function is executed, then it will automatically will be removed from the call stack. So basically this call stack will be remembering all the functions, and once the all the functions are executed, this call stack will be empty. Now guys, we will be discussing about web APIs. So they are part of the browser, whichever browser you are using, Firefox, Chrome. So they are not part of the base JavaScript language. So they are provided as a special part by the browser. So this includes you make AJAX calls like XML HTTP request calls to the network to fetch some data. This also includes some timer methods which is used to delay something. And then we also have the DOM methods, DOM manipulation methods, document.getElement by ID, query selector. All these things are provided by web APIs. And also as you access user web camera, storage API, session storage, local storage, all these things are not part of the JavaScript. They are provided by the browser in the form of web APIs. So these are the special gifts, you may say, that is provided by the browser. In the figure itself, you can see inside our web API, basically it is communicating with the callback queue and the JavaScript base engine. So whenever JavaScript wants to use these things, it is just it is used by web APIs. So now guys, we will be looking at what is a callback function. So callback functions are very much useful whenever you want to write asynchronous code. So as I already told you, JavaScript is a single threaded language that all the instructions will be executed in a sequential manner, and at a time only one instruction can be executed. But using this approach of callback functions, you can uh, execute multiple things at one time. But you can take a very simple example. As I already take this example, set timeout method. You have we guys already used this method numerous number of times. So inside this we are printing out this console log high statement, and basically this second argument it takes is the amount of delay in milliseconds. So here we are providing 1000 milliseconds, so this is exactly equal to 1 second. So exactly after 1 second, this console log high will be printed out in the console. But in the meantime, if the code, the UI will not be stop. In the meantime, the JavaScript will execute the next line of code. So this uh, console log high will be shifted to the call stack. And whenever this is completed, this callback function will be executed, that it will be printed on the console. So now guys, we will be talking about the job queue or task queue. It is also called as callback queue because in the previous slide we saw the set timeout method. It contained that callback function. So every callback that the function returns, all these callbacks will be stored inside this queue, which is called as callback queue. So the event loop will automatically extract all the callback functions which are present inside this queue one by one, and it will transfer these functions inside the call stack. You can see inside the figure on the left hand side we have these set timeout functions which are there. So automatically the delay, it can be anything. The delay can be 0 2000 milliseconds, but these are all callback functions which are stored inside these callback queue. This is just a portion, guys, where it just stores all the references of all the callback functions, and one by one this event loop will uh, transfer this function to the call call stack, and one by one those function will be executed. So this is the concept of this callback queue. Now, guys, we will be discussing about MicroTask Queue. So, from the name itself, guys, it is used by JavaScript to execute micro level operations. As compared to the callback queue, guys, it has more priority as comparison to callback queue, and it is used to store promises. Promises, as you, if you don't know about promises, guys, basically in order to solve the problem of callback hell, we use promises, and it is used to store promises code, this MicroTask queue, and it has more priority, as I already told you. So in this code example, you can see that, guys, we are printing out line by line the instructions. We have console log, a simple statement, hi hello, and then we have a callback function. Here we are using set timeout, and our delay is 0. You can see that the important thing to note here is that the delay is 0, and then we have the third line, which is promise code. So we are resolving the promise, and basically we are resolving it to a string value, which is hello world, and then we are catching it by dot then statement, and then we are printing it using console log. And lastly, we have the end statement. So now if you execute this code, guys, directly inside your JavaScript, inside your browser, the output will be, first of all, the first line will be printing out, which is hi hello, and then the end line will be printing out, because these are two sequential statements, so that's why they will execute first, that is hi hello and then end. And most of the people will say wrong, guys. They will say that this set timeout will execute first and then this promise one, but this is not the case, because this callback function is will be transferred to the uh, this promise will execute first, because this will be transferred to the MicroTask queue, but this callback function will be transferred to the callback queue. So this MicroTask queue has more priority, so that's why this statement of hello world inside promise will execute first, and then lastly the set timeout statement will execute high. So you can also cross check, you can also execute it inside your own machine, and then you can comment it inside your in this video. Now, guys, lastly, we will be talking about the event loop. So it is nothing but, it is also called as the main thread or the user interface of the app. So basically, it is responsible for checking all the management of all the things that we discussed earlier, that is the task queue, callback queue, and web APIs. You can see in the diagram also. So basically, it is responsible for all the things to manage. So you have seen the manager in the company. So the main job of the manager is to control everything. So that's why event loop is very much important in JavaScript.
It is responsible for the smooth running of the program. And you can see inside we have the call stack. Event loop responsibility is to basically check if any sort of callback function is present inside the callback queue, then it needs to transfer that function to the call stack, and that call stack will execute that function. And whenever there is nothing present inside call stack, then basically it again checks in the callback queue, or it again checks in the MicroTask queue. There are lots of queues which are there, and also inside web API, also inside heap memory also. So basically its job is to manage everything. So in order to check if any sort of function is present in callback queue, it needs to transfer to the call stack, and then the call stack will execute that function. So this responsibility of this event loop is to manage everything. So that's it.